Hello, my name is Justin Avila, and today I am going to be talking about the Tiananmen Square massacre. The way I set up this PowerPoint is based on chronological order of the events leading to the Tiananmen Square. The Chinese Cultural Revolution. This revolution was from 1966 to 1976, with the leader of Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong started the Cultural Revolution in order to retain the communist ideology. As a result of the Cultural Revolution, years of culture were destroyed. Many teachers were killed. Even the teachers that were still alive were paid very little, and sometimes were even paid less than a waiter. After Mao Zedong also took some of the anyone who was against him and against the communist ideas or were free thinkers and sent them to the rural side in order to have them think more like a communist or as re-communism. After Mao Zedong's death, moderate leaders took control, such as Deng Xiaoping and Hu Yaobang. Deng Xiaoping started represented his modern leadership by starting the four modernizations to reform China's agriculture, industry, science, and defense sectors. Hu Yaobang was the soul of China. The reason why he was the soul of China was because he freed many imprisoned people that were imprisoned because of Mao. Other information about Hu Yaobang is that he was a former secretary of the Communist Party, and he fought, and his stance was for freedom and democracy. This is why he was liked among many people, because he stood for freedom and democracy. Top leaders like Deng removed him from power because Deng's position was to have a reformed communist idea, not freedom and democracy. He was replaced by Ziyang, who agreed with Hu's ideologies. After 2 years, Zhao was placed under arrest by Deng and his advisors. Uh, Hu died in April 15, 1989. His death for many Chinese people was a symbol of democracy due to his stance. People respected his seats and praised him, and they put a wreath on the revolutionary martyrs in Tiananmen Square. This monument, as they were on the monument, they chanted, "He who died should be alive, and he who is alive should be dead." This showed that they wanted to remove Deng and his officers from office, and they wanted to have people like you in office. Because of this led to a desire for more freedom, and it made more people go to Tiananmen Square in order to protest against the communist leaders in office. April 18, 1989, students protest. The students wanted to go to Hugh's death and his funeral by honoring him. They felt that it was their duty to go and honor Hugh's death. But the government didn't want them because they didn't want more of a commotion, and they didn't really think that it would have much of an effect. Outside the government building, students protested to go and see Deng and the other officials to go and honor Hugh's death. Students also presented the Deng with a scroll, and they were standing outside their capital, holding the scroll in the air as they praised it. Unfortunately, Deng and all the other government officials would not step out of the glass capital, and they would just look at them. This disappointed the students even further, as the scroll was a symbol of something that people would present to their emperors thousands of years ago in China. And the scroll contained seven facts, or seven proposals mainly, about granting the people freedom of speech, freedom of liberty, and other democratic ideas. As the protests continue, the people were complaining about several things. The media lies to the people, the government officials didn't want to listen to the people, and there is no freedom of speech. Also, job opportunities had little to do with the talent and more with the skill and the bribes from the government. And people were even creating words for it, like Min Zu, which means Min means the people and Zu means in charge. They wanted to have a democratic society, so that way they don't have to have censorship and all these other problems that occur because of Deng and his officials. In April 26, 1989, Deng attacked with his editorial. He wrote in his editorial things against the protesters. He was calling them that they were poisoning the people's mind. They wanted to destroy the nation, when really it was the opposite. They just wanted to have more of a freedom. They didn't want to destroy the nation or poison the people's minds. They just wanted to have the government just tell the truth. Once people heard about this, the protesters grew in size, and people from like 11 different cities started to protest and started to find out that Deng was really a liar, along with all of his editorials. More protests occur. Reports demand to be told the truth. More people started to protest after Deng's editorial. More the numbers grew in size. They even started to have a hunger. The protesters attacked Deng by having a hunger strike. This caused the world to look and see that the Chinese are poor and they're dying only for democracy. This increased and gave a lot of media, and this spread the word that the people want more democracy in China. In May 15th, after hearing about the hunger strike, the leader of the Soviet Union, Gorbachev, went to go down to Communist China. Deng was very excited to see this because he thought that he will gain the support of one of the most powerful Soviet leaders on earth. Instead, what happened? He looked foolish on TV after Gorbachev found out in live TV that it was Deng who caused all these hunger strikes. This humiliated Deng and caused him to try to take revenge against the protesters. In May 19th, Deng, after being humiliated by the nation, Deng and his advisors decided to declare martial law. This what the martial law during martial law they sent in tanks and troops with vehicles. This enraged the people and they put slogans against Deng. As the vehicles were getting towards Tiananmen Square, the people blocked the vehicles and handed the soldiers tea and newspapers. A little side note about the soldiers is that when they're in combat, they are not allowed to read any newspapers. So this is the first time that they're really seeing a Chinese editorial. The, the soldiers found out about what the protesters were really doing, and they decided to go drive away. After finding out, Deng was humiliated even further and sent his two highest officials to go down to every single top commander and tell them that this is their last warning or else they will all be shot. On May 30th, 1989, the students who study in art decided to come up with a new symbol or a new attack against Deng. They came up with a peaceful statue of a poor peasant holding a torch. This statue is supposed to represent the goddess of democracy. When the officials looked at the statue, it reminded them of New York because it looked a lot like the Statue of Liberty, and to them it symbolized freedom based on American liberty and American westernization. Deng was furious with the statue, and it represented a symbol of freedom and demanded it to be taken down. On June 3rd, 1989, soldiers began attacking unarmed people. Even people who weren't even protesting were shot. This was because they didn't know who were protesting and who weren't, so they began shooting just at random people. They even shot at doctors and ambulances trying to help injured people. Even on the ground, they were shooting at people's apartments, and even if you were just sitting watching TV, you could still get shot to death. People even tried to create a human wall to protect the protesters, but the tanks just rolled right over them. In return, people attacked the soldiers with rocks and sticks, and they destroyed some of the army vehicles and beat the soldiers to death. In the morning of June 4th, the massacre continues. There are still 3,000 people in Tiananmen Square in the morning. They have heard news that a lot of people have died, and it's good enough for them to leave. But some of them decide this as the soldiers surround them. Some of them decided if they should leave or if they should stay. So they had a vote. Those who say that they should stay said aye. The ayes won, and the people and only a few people left. Those who stayed eventually were shot down by the soldiers. And at 6 a.m. the square was cleared and everything was burnt along with the statue, tents, and other belongings of the Tiananmen Square people. Of the people who left, they eventually we do not know what really happened to them. Some say that they left and soldiers were shooting at them from behind, and some say that they were ambushed by soldiers. Some say that they got home safely. No one knows for sure what happened to the people who left. In June 5th, 1989, as a row of tanks started to leave Tiananmen Square, one man stepped out and he stopped the tanks. As the tanks were trying to get past him,
He moved in front of the tanks and then climbed on top, asking why did you do this to my people? After a little while, a few people who we do not know if they're soldiers, policemen, or his fellow peers started to come out and they rushed him away. We do not know what happened to this man. It is assumed that the Chinese government took him to prison, either killed him or tortured him to death, or held him, or he's still in prison to this day. Finishing off the protest, the Chinese government arrested many of the surviving protesters. They even and asked them where their friends, loved ones, and other people were. Even the people who sympathized with the students were arrested and were also trialed with the people who were protesters. Jails were full, and many people were in pain because of this. A few days later, Deng congratulated the soldier on live TV for a good job. Chinese officials say that the protesters were counter-revolutionary and that the military was justified for their actions. The government lies about their number of deaths, which is 241, but the true number is unknown.
My opinions on the situation. I find that the government should have made a compromise with the people, so that way everyone would have been happy and a lot of lives would not have been lost. Because of this, it looks really bad on Deng and China's part. Other information is that the Chinese government should let this be played live if they think that this is the right thing to do and that everyone should obey their power. Overall, I believe that the government should apologize for killing so many people regardless of their stance.